Hello everyone, Calibit here, and today I will be talking about Fathom, and why it's so good in my opinion. And you're probably wondering why I haven't covered this game earlier. It's because it just released on PS5 not that long ago, so I could only play it like recently. Also, sorry for the late upload, I just recently got my PS5 and it's been confusing trying to work stuff out. But yeah, there isn't really much else to say, so anyways, let's just get into the video. Okay, real quick before we actually get into things, this video will be split up into 5 parts. Those 5 parts are visuals, the story, and then the gameplay, and then like just some extra stuff, and then the horror. Now that I actually got that out of the way, let's for real now get into the video. Now with part 1, we have the visuals, which is simply a feature that I really like about this game, and I think that's really underrated. Now, the visuals also seem pretty simple at first glance, just, the typical VHS, PS1 style horror game thing. It's literally everywhere. But what makes this game special is the amazing views and just how good the overall game looks. When you're driving in the car and you look out the window, you see a pretty sunset. Like, the diner looks really nice with all the people. Just, like, the looks of the game, it's just really pleasing in my opinion. Even at the times where nothing much is happening and you're just sitting in the fire tower, it's just like a pretty game in my opinion. Some of my favorite parts include the part where you look at a sunset and drink some coffee, and the part where it's raining. Sometimes I just want to sit down and just like listen to the rain and look out in the game, because the sound effects and everything are really nice, and the game just looks good overall. I think this is definitely a really underrated part of the game. It just adds to the game a lot more, and I think it's just a pretty cool visual style. Part 2, the story. Now, I'm basically just going to talk about the story and, like, the main events, which happens. I'm not going to go too deep into it. You can just watch a lore video if you want to learn more about it. But I'm just going to talk about the main events. So, basically, you're a guy named, Jack or whatever, and you need to just, like, go get a job. So you do this fire tower job, and while you're doing that fire tower job, some scary stuff happens. Now, in all honesty, the story is pretty good. Like I said, I wouldn't go too deep into it, but I think a lot of the lore and stuff with the cult that tries to kill you, it leaves me wanting more. Though that is sort of a bad thing, like I didn't learn enough about the story through the game, it does leave me pretty interested and curious about the game, and it keeps me thinking about it, which could be a good thing. The story is really interesting, that's one thing for sure, and I really wish there was more, like a sequel to this specific Fathom game or something, because I want to learn more about the story. But, in overall, the story is pretty good. I think it executes the story pretty well, it doesn't just shove too much into your face, not too little either, but it does leave me wanting more, which is both a good and a bad thing. So, the story is pretty good. I feel like, among everything else, it's kind of just like a side thing, because I feel like this game is more just like get scared and look at pretty things, which is pretty cool. But I do think the story is very interesting, and it's still a very important part of the game, and it's pretty interesting and fun to learn about. So yeah, the story is really good. Part 3, the gameplay. Now, the gameplay isn't really the focus of the game. It focuses more on story, visuals, and horror, but there are 3 main parts of gameplay, and a 4th one that happens at the end that I will talk about. Now, the first one that I want to talk about is the driving. It's just driving. It's pretty simple, but it does keep you entertained while looking at all the text messages. Along with some pretty good visuals, I think the driving is completely fine. Also, the next thing is the hiding, which is probably the thing you've seen everywhere. Basically, whenever you hide under an object, a microphone symbol pops up, which means you basically can't speak or you die. And whenever an enemy comes in, if they hear you speaking, they kill you. That's basically it. But there are some cool things, because the PS5 controller has a built-in mic, and I didn't realize that, because Fathom is the first game I played on PS5. So when I actually got to the section where, like, you hide from him, I didn't realize that the PS5 controller had a built-in mic, so I just, like, got really scared. So yeah, that's also pretty cool. And the final section you've probably seen is the peeing. Now the peeing is mostly an unimportant part of the gameplay. It's quite literally just peeing. That's all it is. But it does actually help do something later. One time you're about to walk up the fire tower, but your character says, I need to pee, so you go into the porta potty and you pee. And it actually pulls up a microphone symbol, which in case you remember from the last thing I talked about, is basically where you're supposed to hide. So later in the game, the guy runs down the staircase and he's actually right there, and if you actually paid attention to the microphone symbol, you'll know that's where you're supposed to hide. So it isn't all useless, it actually teaches you about where you're supposed to hide, so that's pretty cool. And the fourth part of gameplay that appears right near the end is the running. Now, before you actually end the game, the scary man, or cultist, comes chasing after you, and you just have to run from him and get in your van. You basically just gotta book it. It isn't really, like, that hard to do. It is very intense, though. All the music and stuff sets it up really well. You just run to the van, open the door, and shut it. The scariest part is always opening that stupid joy door, because I always shut it on myself and die. But yeah, gameplay, pretty simple, but I think it definitely helps. I think if there was no gameplay at all, it would be a pretty boring game, but there is stuff to keep you entertained, so I think the gameplay is pretty good. Now, part 4, the vibe. Now, I know this isn't something that's gonna apply to everyone, but I certainly, enjoy it a lot. Now, the vibe is basically, instead of the game just being scary, 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 ooh, get scared, which is a good thing to get scared in a horror game, but it's just, it doesn't do it constantly. Like, between all the really scary moments, there are these chill sections. Like, driving the car with some cool music, eating at the diner with disgusting eating sounds, and as I already mentioned before, like sipping coffee near sunset, the rain sounds, like listening to the rain. It's a very, very cool game. Like, you aren't always just getting scared all the time, and if you really want to, you can just speed through these sections. But I really just like listening to the sounds of the rain, or just sipping coffee. And I already mentioned earlier that the visuals really help this. The diner is just busy. It has a lot of chatter, background noise, so you got that. Just the ambience and a lot of things in this game are really, really good. Some also other things I like about the game are the extra videos and games in the computer. There are a bunch of videos you can watch. They're all pretty cool. I don't have enough time to showcase all of them. That would take too long. But they're all really cool and funny. And also, there's a game called Unplagued in the computer. It's basically Call of Duty Zombies, but less good. Granted, it is a game instead of a game. It's just a cool little extra thing. You can't really expect that much out of it. Shoot some zombies and have some fun. It's pretty cool. I also really like the vibe of the game. I already mentioned this. It's just a chill game when it wants to be chill, and a really scary game when it tries to be scary. It's just pretty cool. I'll let you listen to some of the atmosphere of the areas. If you don't want to listen to it, you can just skip to this time. I'll probably put it on screen or something. Now we move on to part 5, the horror. Now, let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. The horror is really good. No questions asked. Is really, really scary and well done. Now, some of my favorite parts of the game are when whistling, when you're going to like go investigate a campsite, you hear whistling and then you hear a man scream. Which is obviously not very cool. And that obviously signifies that the whistling is bad. And later in the game, when you go to grab some wood for the fire, you hear whistling, which makes you extremely, extremely scared. There's so many moments exactly like this that are set up so perfectly. It's just so small, but when you actually notice it, it is really, really scary. Especially when I just noticed it when I was playing. I just heard whistling. I was like, oh my god. I was really scared. The horror is really well done in many, many ways. Especially later in the game where the guy actually comes after you. But smaller things earlier in the game still are very, very scary. So it's the hints over and over that there is something actually in the woods and that you're not going insane. Now, the horror at the end of the game, which I will talk about right now, is still pretty good. It starts out with you investigating a campfire, taking a photo of some cultists, leaving the flash on, which is always a mistake, and getting noticed somehow. The cultists then run up the stairs, and you hide under your scared little bed. And then they come in, and you basically just stay quiet. And then after that, you run out, they see you, you have a little short chase sequence down the stairs, and you hide in the porta potty, which is something I mentioned earlier in the gameplay section. Once again, really, really cool. And then at the end, when you finally think you escape, it actually pulls a 180, and the scary man comes running out of the woods. This is extremely, extremely scary, especially when you thought you escaped him. He's really fast and you're really slow for some reason, especially with all the music and sound effects, and just trying to make it to the van and not shutting the door on yourself. It is really, really well done, all the horror in general. Just really, really well done. Some earlier things are also pretty cool. I like all the sections where you can just see him peeking around the corner. You can see a flashlight turn out in the corner of your eye. There are very clear signs that someone is watching you and they are your target. I actually died earlier in the game on accident by running up towards him and just dying. The jump scare is really, really loud. I'm gonna play it right now. I will say the headphone warning, so maybe turn down your volume. But I think when you do actually get caught and you have that really scary and loud jump scare, I think it just, like, it's really good payoff for just, I don't know, it's just really, really scary.
Huh?
You'll likely get jump scared at least once for the entire game, and considering that you'll probably get jump scared, the lead up and build up to him is insane. You can see some guy stalking you, you can hear a bunch of screams in the woods and the whistling earlier in the game, which leads you to believe this is the same guy because he whistles all the time. It is really, really good build up. Even in the beginning of the game, there's this guy eating at the diner who won't talk to you, and he has the same exact clothes and a shovel right next to him. The amount of build up to this single character is insane, which pays off with either the escape or the jump scare. You'll likely get jump scared, so the payoff is really, really good. Even if you don't get jump scared, you still find out that's him and you escape through a really, really scary sequence. The build up to the horror character is really, really good, and it's really, really scary. So yeah, the horror is 10 out of 10. Very, very scary. So, in conclusion, is Spears of Fathom really a perfect horror game? No, but I think it's pretty near close to it. I think the only thing it needs is better gameplay, but other than that, it is a really, really good horror game. So many, like, extra details that don't need to exist for, like, no reason. Like, all the games and videos on the PC, the fact that your controller, if you're using console, like, flashes red if you're being chased or hiding from the cultist, it's all really, really cool, and the game's really scary. It has a bunch of, like, little extra sections where you just chill out and relax. The game looks good. It is a really, really good looking game, really good playing game, really good sounding game, really good scary game. So yeah, if I recommend you get any horror games, I recommend you get this one. That is a really, really good game. Before you leave, I just want to thank you for making it this far, and I hope you really enjoyed my video. And if you did really enjoy it, like and subscribe if you want to. And even if you don't, it still means a lot that you just enjoyed my video and just like you enjoyed it. Also, I've gotten new editing software recently. It should make it faster and easier to get more videos out and make them. So if you want to see any content related to horror games or just games in general, like and subscribe. But even if you don't, I hope you just enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.